Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? Couple more items in the National Football League. Phillip Rivers announcing his retirement this past weekend. Most of his career spent with the San Diego/LA Chargers, and finishing up his career with the Indianapolis Colts. His career stats, guys: 240 starts, 64.9% completions, fifth all time in passing yards with 63,440, fifth all time in touchdowns, 421, 209 interceptions, a career QBR of 95.2. But one of the big questions I've seen since the announcement of his retirement is Phillip Rivers a Hall of Famer? Obviously great numbers. Was never really able to not only put it together in the playoffs, but I always look at when it came down to the clutch, like, could you trust Phillip Rivers? And you can make arguments about, did he have the cast around him, but I never felt that you could trust Phillip Rivers when the game is on the line. To me, I think numbers are great. I don't think he is a Hall of Famer. I think it's very similar, oddly enough, when you talk about how their draft when they came into the NFL played out. I think it's very similar to Eli Manning. The difference with Eli Manning is 2 Super Bowls. I personally still don't think Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer. I think he will be in the Hall of Fame, A, because he's a Manning, and B, because he won those 2 Super Bowls. But I don't see Phillip Rivers' resume being strong enough to get him into the Football Hall of Fame. Dave, we'll start with you. Is Phillip Rivers a Hall of Famer?
Oh, he's a Hall of Famer in the gambling Hall of Fame, because no one covers the back door like Rivers. When you're down 10 with 30 seconds left, he gets you home every time when you got +6. So there's a huge bonus for that. But the thing you have to consider with Rivers is the era that he's in, with all the numbers being inflated and things along those lines. His numbers are there, but it's also an inflated era. But I think, and I don't want to spoil my rant on this baseball Hall of Fame thing, but I think a lot of the Hall of Fame depends on how the members in the media feel, the media being the main one. And is Rivers liked by the media? And you got to take that into consideration on these borderline guys now, because that's a clear component of it. And I think that Rivers is a Hall of Famer, not a strong Hall of Famer. I mean, it's not like trying to vote Dan Marino in. But I think he's a Hall of Famer. It might not be a first ballot type of thing, but I think with his numbers, he gets there.
All right, Matt, I saw you shaking your head before I even asked the question. So is Phillip Rivers a Hall of Famer?
No. I think he has good numbers, but I think at this point in this stage of the NFL that we're seeing, where the passing game kind of dominated the NFL, you're going to see a lot of quarterbacks that had really high statistical numbers in passing yards, touchdowns, especially if you played, and started over 15 years. So I don't think that he did enough in the playoffs to warrant getting to the Hall of Fame, and I don't think his stats are good enough to warrant it on that end. So I think that he's just going to miss out, much to the chagrin of his 37 children.
Sean, is Phillip Rivers, and we're talking real, not fantasy football, because gaudy fantasy numbers, but is Phillip Rivers a Pro Football Hall of Famer?
Well, before I get into my take, I'd like to apologize to his wife's uterus. Lord knows the punishment that's going to take with him not having football to play during the course of the year. As for his career and his legacy going forward, yes, Phillip Rivers, in my opinion, is a Hall of Famer. Phillip Rivers, we're talking about a guy 17 years, 8-time Pro Bowler, pretty good. And like you said, the stats are going to be inflated, just kind of in general in this era. And you're going to have these guys. You're going to have the, is Matt Stafford a Hall of Famer conversation in a couple years. You're going to have the is Matt Ryan a Hall of Famer. I think both those guys are. And I think the issue is like, yes, it's a different era of the league, but nobody really said that about running backs when it was that era of the league. They're just all like really high on a list. So they all just kind of like, yeah, well, they beat Walter Payton, so they're in. It's with running backs, you don't have the issue of like, well, they don't have any playoff wins. Like, people forget that there was an area where the wins and losses weren't hung on the quarterback. They still are in everybody's minds, but it wasn't necessarily the way the game played out. And to me, I think with these guys, if they're in that top echelon of passing, I think you just got to let them in and let the fans be like, you know what? Because unfortunately, sometimes when the media does vote, like Dave alluded to, you get guys in that, maybe, he shouldn't be in. Or how did that guy not get in? And it's brought up a lot of times. Should coaches, should players be involved in the Hall of Fame process? And I'll tell you this, if people in the league were involved, Phillip Rivers would be in a lot faster than he's probably going to get in. I think he's liked by a lot of people in the league. He's just kind of one of those funny guys, just kind of the dog in everybody without cursing, I think is hilarious. Like he's on referees all the time using like made up swear words. I think it's hilarious. But I don't know, 95%.
Well, he has to make up swear words. He has 47 kids.
2-to-1 touchdown to pick ratio. And I don't know. I don't see any reason why not. I mean, we're talking about a guy that was the MVP of the 2000 MicronPC.com Bowl. He's clearly a professional football Hall of Famer. I don't know. I think he was a great face of the league. I think he kept the Chargers relevant for a really long time. And he was very influential in the fact that because of him, Drew Brees went to New Orleans and wound up doing way better than he would have anywhere else. Give me Phillip Rivers in the Hall of Fame. I think his bust will be hilarious, and you can just kind of build little busts of his kids all around.
Well, they put a bolo tie on the bust. That's the question. If he gets in,
I certainly hope so. I imagine, does he get to make that call? Is he like, this is what I want my bust to be wearing? Do they get to choose that?
I would hope so.
Like whatever you're wearing when you get the cast made, or like whatever, like just put this on there.
Another one, and this isn't a quarterback who is retiring, but you brought him up about potential future Hall of Famer is Matthew Stafford. We saw the reports he will not be back in Detroit next season. I don't think there's anybody happier about that decision than Matthew Stafford. I think he's probably wanted out of Detroit for a number of years. But there's a lot of intriguing places that he could land. There's obviously the rumors about Houston and what's going to happen to Deshaun Watson. There's Indianapolis needs a quarterback now. There's the Cowboys. They don't have a quarterback under contract for next year. A starting quarterback. There's tons of places with a lot of intriguing storylines. Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? Where do you think, Sean, we'll start with you. Where do you think Matthew Stafford is under center next year?
I think it's very early to make that call. I think a lot of that's going to shake out with NFL Draft Day. You're going to have a lot of I don't think it's going to be with a low ball team. I feel like any of those teams that are, in the first few picks of the draft, they're going to find their guy as best they can and kind of go with what they have. I like those middle of the pack teams. Like I like the idea of Indianapolis, who is in a rare position to hop 1 year after 1 year from like nearly retired quarterbacks. They could hop from a Phillip Rivers to a Matt Stafford to maybe a late career Aaron Rodgers to like a Tom Brady at age 50. Like they could do all that and just never have to draft one.
Well,
and
I mean, they're a team that, I mean, everything else is ready to roll. You have a great defense.
Yeah.
You have a great running game. You have a really good receiving core, solid tight ends, pretty decent offensive line. Like that seems like a team that is really just a quarterback away.
Yeah, and I think like an interesting team when you're like whether it's Matt Stafford or not, I don't think he's the right choice. But an interesting team in the QB mix is going to be Houston in that whatever Deshaun Watson decides to do, or whatever he decides to force a hand, they may be looking for one. So I don't know. I think Matt Stafford could wind up, unfortunately, or fortunately for him, I think he still has enough in the tank. He's not going to wind up, holding a clipboard anywhere. So that's good. But I would say my early runnings would probably be either like Indianapolis, maybe a Miami situation if they feel Tua's not ready. But I don't see that being a scenario. But yeah, I don't see it being any of those first handful of teams to draft. It's going to be somebody in the middle.
Matt, where do you think Matthew Stafford ends up?
Well, it's definitely going to be an AFC team. I don't foresee the Lions traded him within the conference. So aside from the teams mentioned, I'd say the one that hasn't been mentioned yet that I could see being a possibility just because they don't really seem married to their quarterback, and that would be the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that he would be an interesting quarterback for them to have out there, barring what they want to do moving forward. I don't think they see Carr as kind of their answer. So I could see them. Yeah, right. So I could see them making that move to bring him in, just to kind of get some flash into that new team, new city still, because I don't even think Las Vegas people are really thrilled about Carr either. So if you make a big splash with a trade like that, I think it gets people in Vegas more excited about the franchise that they now have.
Dave, where do you think Matthew Stafford ends up next season?
I think it's going to be very interesting on where he goes, and some of that's going to ultimately depend on what Deshaun does. I've heard that Deshaun's going Jets and or Dolphins are the two that he's most interested in. Again, whether how true that is or anything else, who really knows? But I think there's the more important, interesting issue with that is that it's pretty clear that the Dolphins aren't overly set on Tua, which is kind of an interesting development. But back to the question at hand, I think the one team that's very intriguing that I've heard have had some interest in Stafford is the New England Patriots, and just putting him on that team would be very interesting to see what happens, and with Belichick, how that works out, type of thing would just be very interesting to see. Dynamically speaking, it would kind of give him a proven quote unquote quarterback. I mean, proven with the Lions, but still someone that has a clue compared to the clown that they had there previously. So we'll take that how that goes, but I think New England would be very interesting. Caps
just scored with 26. The Caps are down to two healthy centers. Eller went off injured. Baxter went off injured. Justin Schultz, new capital this year, just scored to take a 3-2 lead. The Caps hopefully looking to avoid what would be the first time they've ever gone to 5 straight overtime games. If they can get the win here. Well, I know a lot of Caps fans, and Dave, I know you're one with me. Like I've seen some Caps fans mad about like how this team always goes to overtime and loses. I'm like, the fact that we're making all these games go to overtime with this depleted roster between injuries and COVID exempt list, I'm actually pretty excited about the early developments with this roster in the Laviolette era.
I could just tell you it makes me real happy because we go to overtime in these divisional games and we're pissing off both the Flyers and Penguins fans at once. So screw them both.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. It's like normally you go out to Anaheim and you lose in overtime. It's not that big of a deal. But the other weekend when you had the 2-game series against the Penguins win 2 games, but they only get back 2 points because the Caps earned a point in each one. So overtime becomes a lot more interesting in the NHL this season. But I was thinking about New England, about a potential interesting landing spot for Matthew Stafford, but another one, and it's going to depend.
New England, I would buy that.
It's going to depend on what Alex Smith decides to do. in Washington because there's. I think he released a statement at the end of the season that like all options are on the table. Obviously, considering retirement, I think a big thing in his life was to get back to the NFL. Then he had the calf injury late in the year, and you maybe start to question, do I really want to risk any more injury? Because here's the thing, like Alex Smith, I think is a pretty smart NFL guy. I think he could end up as an offense or a quarterbacks coach, pretty quickly after he chooses to retire, and then obviously be a lot safer. I think Washington could be a very interesting team. Caps finish off the win there, 3-2 over the Islanders. But I think Washington's a team to watch in the Stafford sweepstakes if Alex Smith does choose to retire. Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?